G'day, Dave here, and it's the 7th of December, and we've got a few weeks left until Christmas. Not long, we're starting to get ready. My wife pulled out our box of Christmas decorations over the weekend. Now we have a nativity scene in our lounge room. It was a nativity scene knitted for us by a friend's grandmother. It's really pretty cool, except I've noticed that one of the sheep has only got hind legs. It doesn't have any front legs, and it looks a bit more like a fur seal than it does a sheep. But never mind that. We've got tinsel gathered around various things in the lounge room. We've got coloured lights up on the veranda. My wife has actually painted a tree to hang on a banner to go on the wall, and it looks like it's covered in snow and tinsel and so on. It's pretty cool. Now, as we prepare for Christmas, and maybe as you prepare for Christmas, a few days out or maybe a few weeks out, or even like our shops, a few months out, we can remember and rejoice that God has been preparing for Christmas for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. God's plan for Christmas had its origins right back at the very beginning, and we've been looking through the Old Testament to see just how things are pointing towards that very first Christmas. We've seen how God created people in a relationship with Him to enjoy that relationship, but how the devil tempted us to not trust God's words. And somehow ever since, we've kind of thought that maybe God doesn't really have our best interests at heart, but God keeps showing us that He does. And He provided Abraham and told Abraham that he would be the father of a great nation, that He blessed the world through Abraham. And then we see Him doing that through Isaac and then through Jacob. And then when the people of God have started to become numerous, they're slaves in Egypt. And so God raises up Moses, and Moses will be the rescuer of God's people. And we saw last time that the Passover was God's salvation event where a lamb is substituted for the people so that the people can be set free. And all of these things are pointing us towards Jesus. Well, we've arrived at the point now where the people of Israel have left Egypt and they're now wandering in the wilderness. And they're grumbling and they're complaining. In fact, it didn't take them long to grumble or complain at all. It's very easy to look back and think that you had things better when the going gets tough. And so I want to take you to Exodus chapter 16. And the people of God are out in the desert, and the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And I'll pick it up at verse 3. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food that we wanted. But you've brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." See, where are they going to get food out in the desert? There's no shops, there's no shopping centres. There are very few trees, I would imagine. They're certainly not going to find great orchards. And they're not likely to find fields of grain. Where are they going to get food? Well, then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather just enough for that day. In this way I will test them to see whether they will follow my instructions." It's an extraordinary account. The people of Israel were out in the wilderness for what ended up being 40 years, and God provided food for them right through that whole period. He rained manna down from heaven. Now, the people of God called this strange bread-like substance manna. And if you come down to Exodus chapter 16 and verse 31, the people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. It sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? The people of God received this manna from God every day. Well, one day in the week they didn't, but they were allowed to collect double the day before and it didn't go off. But if they tried to double up on other occasions, it would go off. See, God wanted them to trust Him and to follow His instructions. Now, what's the big deal with this bread? Well, when you come to the New Testament, we discover that Jesus Himself points to God's provision of bread and shows how it tells us something important about God. And I want to go to John chapter 6. In John 6, Jesus has this extraordinary account where He is out in the wilderness area and the people have no food. And Jesus provides food for over 5,000 people. And at the end of providing for them, there are 12 basketfuls of barley loaves and pieces that the people hadn't eaten. Well, an extraordinary provision by Jesus. But then Jesus goes on to say some very significant things about himself. And so John chapter 6 and verse 31. The people ask about a sign, and a sign that they might believe in Jesus. Their ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Now Jesus says to them, very truly I tell you, it's not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven. It's my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. And then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All those the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of the one who sent me. And this is the will of the one who sent me, that I shall lose none of those who have been given to me, but raise them up on the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. See, Jesus takes this object lesson of feeding the people bread, and he points to it and he says, you know what? God is the one who provides all of your needs. He provides the bread that your stomach needs, that you need for nutrition and energy, that you need for everyday life. But deeper than this, God the Father provides a bread that actually opens up eternal life, relationship with God forever. And Jesus says, I am that bread. Just as the manna was given by God from heaven, so Jesus comes from God, from heaven, and he comes to the people so that all who believe in Jesus will have a relationship with God and eternal life. Friends, as we think about our bread, and bread's a pretty staple thing, isn't it? Most of us have bread each day of our life. And as we think about that bread, remember that there's another bread, a more important bread, a bread of life itself, that Jesus Christ is that bread of life, so that if we trust in him, we will have him, and we will have life, and we'll have it for all eternity. Why don't you take hold of, and why don't you take part of that bread of life?